Yep. All right. All right. So I am here with NJEA President Sean Spiller, my union president. Hello.
How you doing? Great to see you.
Great. Good to see you. So we are here in Asbury Park. What event are you here for?
Right now we're Garden State Equality Ball, so excited to head on in a little bit.
Yes. And are you going to be in Asbury the rest of the weekend for all the different Pride events?
I will be. I'll be in the parade, and hopefully I see some folks down, and looking forward to that as well.
Amazing. All right, so we're going to jump right into some questions. Obviously, you are the NJEA president. As governor, would you fully fund our pension?
Ooh, surprise question here again. Yes, I would. Right, absolutely. And I say, listen to everybody out there too. It's important, right? That failure to meet that obligation is the reason right now we are paying $7.5 billion instead of $600 million. It's irresponsibility. Folks have made promises in the past. They haven't lived up to it, and we're all paying for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So sticking with the pensions, another hard one for you. As governor, would you consider eliminating tiers 2 through 5?
Absolutely. And here's why that's important. Certainly every educator knows it, but for everyone else out there as well. Right now, we cannot recruit, we cannot retain folks in the profession. We've got to get back to some stability in the system. And you can't have it where folks doing the same work are getting vastly different pension systems, right? It doesn't work for us, and we're all paying for it. Because when districts can't fill positions, they say, hey, Sean, you're a science teacher. Come on in. We'll give you step 10, or we'll give you a signing bonus. Local property taxes pay those dollars instead of pensions that we invest in the stock market. We get those dollars back. It makes sense. So all of us, this is an issue that matters, and absolutely I would roll all those tiers back to tier 1.
Love hearing that as someone in tier 5. I've been teaching for 12 years already and have another 30 to go before I can get my full retirement.
Ridiculous.
I know.
It's ridiculous.
Okay, so sticking with public education, let's talk about school funding. We all know the funding formula is broken. What are your ideas and what's your vision on how we could best, revamp the funding formula?
There's a couple specific changes we need to the formula itself. Number one, it doesn't account for students with special needs. We've got to make those adaptations because we know there's vastly different costs there. There also needs to be some smoothing that has to occur right now, depending on the wealth that exists in a town. And that could be somebody moving in or somebody moving out. It doesn't take that into account very well. The formula was always designed to be reviewed. That was supposed to be there. I've testified now for years in front of the Assembly and the Senate saying, guys, let's review it. Let's review it. Nothing, right? There's some Band-Aid fix and then we move on. We've got to truly look at that formula, make the changes that we all know should occur over time, that the formula had actually required, right? And then we'll be in a better spot. But I'll also say this, as governor, I think it's important to use the formula to also move forward on a couple other really important issues. We talk about how segregated our communities are here in New Jersey, and that means our schools are segregated. But we can use the school funding formula as well to incentivize districts that diversify the student population, giving them more dollars through the formula that says, hey, in ring districts around more diverse communities and so forth, we're going to give extra dollars, open up those seats, make it more diverse, and we also help address that issue as well.
Yeah, I love that. And, so just a quick little tangent, you're talking about how the school funding formula doesn't adequately take into consideration the wealth or the property values in a community. And you can't see it on this video, but we are standing here looking at multi-million-dollar condos that are going up. And every time you turn around in communities like Asbury Park and Long Branch, there's more of these luxury high-rises going up, and that's impacting the school funding. So how would you look to either address the overdevelopment, use it to address the school funding formula?
Well, there's a lot of pieces in what you just said there, right? Because one is the formula itself and accounting for the wealth in a community, for sure. But you also talked about development, and we need smart development, right? In this state, no question, we are running out of space, right? The available space that we have. And we see what little remains is being gobbled up by, whether it's those big boxes that we see, the warehouses that are popping up everywhere, right? Or we see that big developers are putting in high-end luxury units. And guess what? None of those are affordable that you and I can ever be in, right? So we've got to change that when we say, as governor, I'll invest dollars in our communities to say, we're not just going to build these high-end luxury units that we're staring at here. We're going to make sure we're building ones that have affordable housing, workforce housing, senior housing, veteran housing. You do that through investment so that in the spaces where we are building, we're not building to the scope that we're seeing, but we're also building things that are much more affordable for folks who need it here in New Jersey.
I love hearing that. Part of why I can afford to live where I live is because my city has rent control. And that's something that you implemented as mayor.
Yeah, really proud of that. Look, passed the first ever rent control law in Montclair. And it was because what we saw through COVID was folks were just raising rents, crazy, right? And you go have a conversation, say, this is unconscionable. Don't care. They keep doing it, right? And when they raise rents, everybody around sees that. They raise rents, right? So you've got to address it, and I was really proud to do it, but that's a stopgap measure. The kind of changes that I'm talking about, where we're investing in more housing that's affordable for all of us, that really helps to bring costs down. So we need that in conjunction with a lot of these other tools.
Love it. So back to education, just quickly, school vouchers. Obviously, as NJEA president, you're going to be opposed to them, but could
Yeah.
you explain, why they would be so devastating to public education?
Yeah, and I also say it as a parent with two young kids, right? Listen, public schools are the foundation of this country, foundation of this democracy, right? It only works if we give all our students a great education or opportunity for success. Anyone who chooses to send their child somewhere else, that is great. Applaud it. That's wonderful. But that's on you, right? That is
Yeah.
your responsibility, your choice to go do that. The problem with vouchers is it takes money out of our traditional public schools. And
Yeah.
what that means is there is going to be a child, likely your child, right, who's sitting there without the resources that they need, without the technology upgrades that need to occur, without the exposure to different courses that they now can't offer. It has a major impact. So I'm all for anyone who wants to send their child anywhere, but it shouldn't be on public dollars, right? There's a separation there, and we should make sure that public dollars are going to fund great public schools.
Absolutely. All right. Before we get to some quick fun questions,
Yeah.
anything else you want people to know about your platform?
Yeah, I'll just say this. Listen, from start, I've been talking about how do we make New Jersey more affordable. We've
Yeah.
touched a little about it. It's
Yeah.
about housing, both ownership
Yeah.
and rentals, right? It's about healthcare costs that keep going up and bring those down. I've designed those plans, right, through the work we've done at NJEA.
Yes.
It's about quality early education, childcare. $19,000 a year too high. It's certainly also about energy costs that keep going up and the environment. Those are linked, right? We're paying for it. Big oil's gouging us. We're paying for it. But I'll say this, the thing I want to leave you and everyone else with who's watching this campaign is different because right now, the biggest change that we want to see and need to see, if we're going to truly change systems so we can get the policies that we want, we've got to start with the election system, right? And the system that we have now ensures that the only people who can run for and win public office, especially for governor, are people who are supported by millionaires, billionaires, Wall Street, big developers, all the folks that we know put money into campaigns, big money into campaigns. And I say to everybody out there, we understand inherently the frustration we have when we say, oh, people make empty promises, all these politicians, what's the difference? Because they can never come through. No matter what they say to you in a conversation like this, they can never come through. Because when they say, oh yeah, let's build more housing that's affordable, they get the call from that big developer going, really? We don't want that policy?
Yep.
When they say, we've got to close the income gap, it's too, we need to make sure middle class folks are doing okay. Wall Street makes that call. Nope, you don't want to do that. The big political bosses want the status quo, the money funneling to their people, right? So we've got to fundamentally change how we put people there. And I get my privilege, right? I'm supported by educators and, rings around that of working class folks. But I'll say to everybody out there, you are much more like an educator than you are Wall Street billionaires, the big developers, the big banks, all those folks who get folks elected all the time. We need to see a change in that system. That's why I'm running. That's why this is our chance to make a difference.
I love that. All right. So let's end quickly because you do have to get inside.
Yeah.
All right. I've been asking everyone this. What is your favorite beach? Jersey Shore Beach.
Oh, you know what? I love all of them. I love exploring it, especially with the kids now. But growing up, I'd always go to Manasquan.
Okay.
I surfed, all through high school, and we'd jump in our cars right after school and get down there. So Manasquan's my spot.
Okay, love it. And we are just a couple blocks away from the Stone Pony. Have you been to a concert at the Stone Pony?
I have been over there. I will say this because it's often the next question or anything else. I will say my favorite band is Dave Matthews, right? Okay. That's who I'm a fan of, and those are where I go see most of my concerts and everything else. But I have been over there. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, thanks so much for taking out the time to talk to me.
Yeah, thanks so much. Appreciate having me. Thanks so much.
All right.